Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Thought Exchange answer session. We are thrilled you are with us today, and thank you so much to everyone who participated. We have an all-star crew that is here to help answer your questions that you submitted for us. We'll introduce them as they answer them and get right into it. A reminder, the question for this Thought Exchange was, as we get closer to providing an option for students to return to schools for in-person instruction in mid-April, what questions do you have? We also ask that you visit our frequently asked questions before submitting those questions. So we think that helped a lot. Thank you so much for doing that. Just a reminder, we held several other thought exchanges, one in early March, which we had 570 people participate, asking 608 questions. Then we had one 2 weeks ago, participation, 146 people, asked about 144 questions. And then this latest thought exchange, we had 139 people participate, asking 56 questions or leaving their thoughts there. So we greatly appreciate everyone providing those questions and this opportunity to help answer those and provide you with information and insights into those. So kicking it off, we will go to our superintendent, Dr. Van Alstal. Dr. Van Alstal, thank you so much for being here and helping answer some of these questions for us.
All right, Ryan, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Looking over all of the questions, and first of all, just thank you to everyone that took the time to share a thought and then went back on, or for those that didn't have a thought but were interested to see what kind of thoughts were out there and took the time to star. I greatly appreciate it. So I'm going to answer questions that were primarily in these three themes. The why. Why are we having this transition at this time to a dual environment of in-school, in-person, and the virtual, which leads to some questions about the model that was selected. Secondly, I want to talk briefly about this virtual academy and some questions people had about that. And third, the health guidelines and some of the differences between some of the changes lately with the LA health guidelines that were put out. So jumping back to the why, it has been declared by every health organization that oversees public education, from the federal level down to the state, down to Los Angeles Health Department, have all declared that schools should be open for in-person learning for students. And in California especially, and should also continue to be offering a virtual environment as well. Now, this does not mean that the pandemic is over and we shouldn't be concerned about it. What it does mean is the plummeting transmission rates of COVID-19, along with all of our ability to use the safety protocols in place, allow us to mitigate those impacts as much as possible. And so, but I want to be clear about that because I continue to have conversations with parents that still have concerns. And that is the reason that we will continue to have a virtual environment for parents that are uncomfortable at this time. So the learning model that we selected was, we use kind of this word simultaneous or concurrent, meaning teachers are teaching both in person and students in the virtual. And I want to remind everyone that this was primarily selected because of the end of the school year. It's not something that may have been selected if we were talking about a full year, but we're talking about students and teachers that have been together already for almost a full year, and we only have about 6-7 weeks left of school. And so that played a big factor in this decision. And that was by 77% of teachers selected that as the best model under the circumstances. And the great majority of parents selected that as well. And again, it's because students have been with their class for almost a year and been connecting with a teacher or a number of teachers and want to remain with those instead of being reshuffled. I want to be clear, though, that there is no model out there that would meet all interests of teachers and parents at this time. Clearly, we are being asked to go from one environment that we have been spending months on and focused on and learning best practices and getting better, to now doing dual two environments. And so we will not be as efficient in two models as we were in one. But again, it's about how best to end this school year and provide the best experience for our students, both in the virtual and in person. I want to talk a little bit about Virtual Academy. As I've stated before, we will offer an ongoing virtual environment next year in the fall when we open up and have every expectation to open up completely to all students, staff, extracurricular, sports, performing arts, etc. And we'll continue to offer that virtual environment. Right now, we are completely focused on this transition to this dual environment over the next couple of weeks. Once we get that up and running, we will begin the process that will look very much like parents were engaged in for this transition, which is, it will start with a survey out asking parents, are you interested in a virtual environment come the fall when we open up? And we'll take that data and begin to see what's available, what are the models that we could create with the numbers of parents that are asking for this. And so you will be, seeing a survey that will be coming out after we get up and running with this transition. I will say that it will look very different at the high school level. The models that we've been looking at that have best practices around the country with virtual academies look very different in high school than they do in middle school and what they look like in elementary. So we'll be looking forward to speaking to you further about that. The health guidelines. The health guidelines have continued to change to meet the new transmission rates of COVID-19 as they're plummeting. They've become more and more flexible. Also, the CDC, the health department, continue to utilize research that's been going on across the country in schools. So the data that they're using to make these decisions are based on the research they've been doing in schools watching transmission rates. So having said that, we recently went from 6 feet to 3 feet social distancing expectation. We are going to follow the health guidelines at this time with that 3 feet, which gives us greater flexibility in how we move around campus. But I also want you to know that we continue to recognize that the further we can keep people distanced on campus, the safer it is for everyone. So where it's possible, we'll continue to use the 6 feet that we were planning for a while. Now it changed in the middle of that planning to 3 feet. And clearly that gives us more flexibility. But we continue to be very conscious of the fact that social distancing is an important part of that safety. And so we'll continue to update the community as some of those guidelines change. But as we plan for the last 6-7 weeks of school, our plans now exist with the guidelines that have come out, and we're going to stick to those for the last 6 to 7 weeks. So with that, that's my report. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Van Alstel. Really appreciate that. I know it's another busy day for you, so appreciate you taking the time to spend with us and answer some of those really good questions from people. So much appreciated. And just a reminder to folks, if we don't get to your question that you asked, or you're wondering about something else that may have been asked, please check our FAQs. We updated them last week. We updated them today. So we'll continue to update those with a lot of these questions and a lot of questions. So if you don't have time to watch this whole video, please check our FAQs, and we will get to as many questions and put them on our website as possible. All right, another busy guy, Dr. Brent Forsey, our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. Dr. Forsey.
Hello, good evening. Looking through the questions, I think the first question that popped up was, can we publish some more return data? And I do believe as we get that and it is finalized, there's no reason why we can't publish some of that on our dedicated webpage for the return. And so we'll look to get some of those pie charts for those that are interested in viewing what percentage of their campus, their specific campus, has chosen to return in person or stay virtual. So we'll get that up in the coming week. Another great question is, can symptomatic kids who are in person, who have some kind of symptom, a cough, a fever, a sore throat, and must stay in virtual because they don't pass the symptom check, can they just log in the virtual class for that day? And the answer is yes. And that is, as Dr. Van Alstel talked about some of the benefits of this model that we're going with, this is absolutely one of the benefits, is that we know that there will be students who have symptoms, likely not COVID, but still have symptoms that we cannot have them on campus until those symptoms have subsided and we know they don't have COVID. This model allows them to stay in their same time of day of learning in their same class. In every other model, it would have shifted that student to a different time of day of learning with different students that they were learning with in that environment. So not only would that be a student who wants to be in person and now can't, they're now with a completely different set of kids learning at a different time. And so this model allows for the symptomatic student to simply return home to log on to the virtual environment with their same teacher in the same class. And so that absolutely was one of our thoughts in thinking about this model that we've selected. And then one of the last questions was, how will teachers monitor students online in their learning? And so this is going to be a transition. Again, as we've been telling you, as Dr. Van Osdal mentioned, this is not ideal for anyone. This is the last 6 or 7 weeks of school. We will be educating students at the same time in 2 distinctly different environments, with students there in the classroom and students virtually. And yet we know, just as our teachers were able to launch a highly successful virtual learning environment this fall, we have the same level of confidence that our teachers will find that rhythm of in-person and virtual. Now, there will be a transition. Monday, Tuesday, when those first few days back, there's going to be a transition. There's no way around that. And yet we know that our teachers are committed to the kids in front of them in person as they are committed to the students who are virtual. And to bring you all the way back to our data collection, the one thing, or one of the things, the most important issue that parents and teachers agreed upon is that parents wanted to keep their teacher. We accomplished that. And teachers wanted to keep their kids, and we accomplished that. And so that ownership of parents with their teacher and the ownership and community of teachers with their kids, we believe is going to help us hit that sweet spot of managing both groups of kids at the same time a lot earlier than other districts were able to.
All right, Dr. Forsey, thank you so much. Yeah, we're definitely in another major transition in the pandemic here. So we will learn, grow, and adapt, and we will do it together. So good points for sure. And the flexibility is fantastic in this model. So thank you so much for the insights in that regard. All right, next up is Derek Estlin, our Assistant Superintendent of Business Services. And Derek, not a ton of questions for you in regard to what you oversee, but you and your team very busy with a lot of the safety and health precautions for sure.
Yes, thank you, Ryan. As you said, there weren't many questions, and I know I've been giving updates at board meetings fairly regularly. We've also started including a lot of that information in the FAQ on our district website, and those resources are always available there for people to review. So I'll just go through a quick review of some of the key areas that have come up a lot recently. But first and foremost, most of the work that we're doing in business services, we're doing to maintain safe and healthy schools for our staff and our students. That is our priority. And also we are supporting in every way that we can all of our site staff as we go through this reopening process. And that's what we're focused on in business services. And that starts with the PPE, the personal protective equipment. We have distributed the equipment that we have out to the school sites, and they are getting that ready for each of the classrooms. We're also providing any last minute requests, special requests that are coming in from the sites. Our purchasing department is doing a great job tracking down all of those needs. In terms of the physical space on campus, we're working with site staff to ensure that we limit occupancy within the classrooms and the offices so that we comply with the health requirements. And that can involve moving furniture and spacing furniture or taking it out of the classroom. And we're supporting the teachers in their needs during that preparation process. In terms of cleaning and disinfecting, our operations staff has implemented their updated schedule of cleaning and disinfecting using a peroxide-based disinfecting solution, and in particular focusing on those high touch points that will be cleaned at least once per day, if not several times per day, depending on the level of traffic and use in that area. One update that I can provide is in relation to the secondary schools. Now that we have some more information about their schedule, we will be providing alcohol-based wipes so that any desks and chairs that are shared between students can be cleaned in between the classes. The wipes are 75% alcohol. They do kill almost all of the common viruses and bacteria. It's really sort of a hand sanitizer version, but in a hand wipe. And so we think that that's a good solution that can be done quickly and in between the classes, both by students and teachers, as well as our operations staff. In terms of our HVAC, our ventilation systems, our ongoing preventative maintenance program is still in effect. Our filters are all being replaced according to the recommended schedule, and all of the parts that we can access are being cleaned and disinfected as we've been doing all along. We do have the fresh air setting on our HVAC units set to maximum so that we get as much outside fresh air into the classrooms as we can. We're also in the process of upgrading our air filters from MERV 8 to the MERV 10 level, and that in conjunction with the needlepoint bipolar ionization units that we have now installed in all of our classrooms, that provides an air cleaning level that's equivalent to a MERV 13 filter. And with that, I'll say thank you and turn it back to you, Ryan.
All right, Derek, thank you so much. Learning a lot. Never knew I would know so much about air filters these days, but there's a lot to know, and appreciate all the different MERVs that we're all talking about, but a lot of great safety work done by your crew. So really appreciate all their efforts. Dr. Kevin Harishu, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resource Services, is with us as well. Kevin, good evening.
Hello, thank you, Ryan. So I'll be touching base on a few questions here. One is in relation to vaccination data collection. There was a question asking, can aggregate level information on COVID vaccine coverage be reported to the AUSD dashboard by school/grade for teachers/staff and students? So current state law does not require, nor does it recommend districts collect vaccination data on staff and/or students. Thus, the statewide or county systems have not been established to be able to do this. Furthermore, the EEOC guidance states that collection of processing of vaccination information raises data privacy and security risks, and California includes medical information as part of the definition of personal information under their breach of notification laws. Thus, a dashboard is not in the works at this time. Next, there was a question in relation to the travel advisory. And the question was, as schools cannot monitor travel nor mandate quarantine, what can we do as a responsible community to reinforce the latest travel advisory from DPH? This is a great question. And this question was addressed in both the Coronavirus Update 38, which was sent on March 19th to both community and staff, and it was placed in the FAQ located on the district website. In essence, we ask all parties to self-monitor and follow county travel guidelines to ensure a smooth and safe reopening. And last, there was a question asked about sub-plans. And the question was, will teachers have to submit lesson plans a few days ahead of time? And just as in normal times, it is recommended that teachers have emergency plans to cover for an emergency and/or an unforeseen absence. And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you so much, Kevin. Really appreciate that. And that question and your answer gave me a good idea for the travel advisory as we approach spring break. We reiterated that and talked about it in update 38, but we'll do it again in update 40, just a reminder to people where they can get more information, what the exact advisory is. So we will include that again in update 40 coming out on Friday. So thank you for that reminder. Appreciate that. All right. last but not least, we will go to our district nurse, Erica Newkirk.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm going to be addressing 3 questions from the recent Thoughtexchange survey. The first question was in regards to masks, and the author wanted to emphasize the importance of mask wearing. The use of face coverings for all students and staff is a requirement within the county health guidelines for reopening schools. The only exceptions are during scheduled eating breaks, where extra precautions will be taken to ensure adequate distancing, and then also for individuals who have medical conditions or disabilities that might preclude them from wearing a mask. As of right now, there are only a very small number of individuals who have medical concerns in regards to mask wearing. Dr. Mahoney and her team, particularly the occupational therapist, have been working diligently to find solutions for these families that will be safe and effective and consistent with the county guidelines, and I'm confident that we will be able to find good workable solutions for everybody involved. The next question was in regards to testing. In the red tier, asymptomatic testing of individuals is not a requirement for reopening and is only recommended at a cadence of every 2 weeks for situations associated with higher risk, which is defined as by the state as regions with high community transmission rates or with high risk activities such as contact sports. The guidance goes on to explain that modeling studies show that asymptomatic testing is not as effective as other mitigation efforts like masking and cohorting, and recommends placing an emphasis on symptom and exposure-based testing rather than asymptomatic testing. Given this guidance, AUSD is not offering asymptomatic testing to all students and staff at this time, and is instead focusing on offering testing for our highest risk activities like contact sports. It also bears mentioning that there's no recommendation for asymptomatic testing for the orange tier, which, based on most recent numbers, we have reached as of today, the 30th. The final question I will be addressing was in regards to our health screenings and whether or not staff would be participating in daily health screenings. And the answer is yes. Our health screenings will be completed by all students and staff. And the health screenings do include a daily temperature check, as well as questions about symptoms and possible exposures.
Okay, thank you so much, Erica. Really appreciate that. And before we go, we'll throw it to our superintendent, Dr. Brunel Stahl, for some final thoughts.
Yeah, thanks again, Ryan. I also remembered some questions that I wanted to address specifically around technology. The first one is Wi-Fi. We have been pleased to announce that our technology office has been adding hundreds of additional Wi-Fi access points around our campuses, adding additional ones plus replacing some older Wi-Fi. As we all know, infrastructure on the internet right now is the utmost priority. And in addition to that, also pleased to announce that all of our teachers will receive by opening day updated technology that's going to help facilitate their teaching and learning in this dual environment of having students in front of them, as well as how to best connect with those students at home and keep them connected to what's going on in the classroom. Very important, and with that technology, we believe that's going to help support that tremendously. I want to also just say thank you to the many students, staff, teachers, parents, administrators that have been a part of these site-based leadership councils or leadership teams that have been so actively involved in the courageous conversations about what this transition will look like coming back to campus for some students. I know there's been a lot of discussion, rich discussion, a lot of different interests, but making sure that we get to consensus and the best possible model for that end of the year, 6-7 weeks, has just been really important work. And so I want to say thank you. And then just a reminder that this is a transition that yet we're about to take for the entire organization again, because it's a change for all our teachers and our staff. It's going to be a change for all our students, whether they're coming back for in-person or virtual. And with that, I just ask again for a lot of patience, space, and grace as we make this transition. And I'm confident as an organization, just watching the amount of work and care that has gone into the planning, that we are going to have a great experience for all our students, whether they come back in person or whether they remain in virtual for the end of the year. So I just thank you to our entire school community for everything you've done to make this a great experience for our kids.
Very well said, Dr. Van Alstall. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of our panel for helping answer these really good questions via our thought exchange. And thank you to everyone who participated. A reminder, for more information, please visit our website, our COVID page, which has the FAQs. It'll have a link to this thought exchange, this video, our most recent Board of Education meeting, and the page with all of our updates, resources, and information. So that is all on there as well. Thanks again, everyone. Again, the website is ausd.net. Thanks so much and have a great night.